This is the MO Sessions podcast, where we talk about magic ways to become a better magician to be good to your magic. I'm your host, Benny Slade, and I couldn't be any more thrilled that you are here. Hey everyone, welcome back to the MO Sessions. I'm your host, Benny Slade, and I hope you're all doing good. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be a little reflective. It's going to be a little bit of promotion, some updates, and a little bit of, most importantly, like a chance to connect and where we're going with the podcast, and have a seat, grab something to drink, and just listen. And I hope you enjoy it. I'd like to start with something that's kind of been weighing on my mind. It's affected me a little bit differently, and it's the passing of Jon Racherbaumer. If you've been around magic long enough, you know what a giant he was. Not just because he was prolific, but because of the kind of person he was. For me personally, Jon wasn't someone whose work I admired from afar. We had a lot of back and forth over the past few years, correspondence that really has made an impact on me. And that's something that I've been reflecting on, and I think it's always going to be carried around with me. At the time, I was knee-deep in Marlowe work, in the Marlowe world. And if you know, you know. It can be a maze. And Jon had this way of cutting through the noise. Some of the things I was working on, specifically, well, I guess I should preface that by saying when I was in the world of Marlowe, which I still have my foot in, there were certain obscure things that I just wasn't quite sure how to navigate. So I would reach out to him, hoping that maybe he could help me navigate it. And he would point out things I hadn't seen or challenge me on things I thought not necessarily I'd mastered, but I had gotten down pretty well. And it was his thoughts on wisdom on those things. And I believe it was a way of making you see more than you thought was there, or in a different perspective. So losing him feels like we lost a living archive. But I think we honor his memory by pushing forward, studying harder, and connecting with each other. So I'd just like to say, rest well, Jon, and thank you for your incredible mark that you've left on the magic industry and our personal correspondence through the last few years. All right, so let's talk about previous episodes for a moment. If you haven't tuned in, I had an incredible episode with Steve Langston. Steve is one of those magicians who is all about community, dedication, growth, and heart. We talked about his journey, his role as Greater Atlanta Magician of the Year, and what it means to lead Ring 9, which is the IBM's Atlanta chapter. We talked about a few of his effects that he's put out, and we've talked about his journey through magic and how it started, and it was an incredible episode. Steve Langston was and is an original podcast, I guess, member, you could say, or listener. And through the years, he's been very kind and vocal about his thoughts on the podcast and what I'm doing. And so thank you, Steve Langston, for coming on. I also had an incredible episode with Jeff Korn. Jeff Korn is a magician now based out of Florida, originally from Grand Canyon in Vegas, and been at the castle and been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And he's a great guy, great journey, great story, and he shared some insight about Johnny Thompson and Vernon, and some of the things he's working on and where he's going to, what he's doing next. And it's a great episode. So Jeff Korn has been on the podcast. Listen to that episode. And we also had an incredible episode with Alex Boyce. We talked about Tannins Magic Camp. We talked about Speakeasy Magic. We talked about some non-magic things to help your magic better. It was an incredible episode. I enjoyed all of the recent episodes that we've had. So thank you, everybody, for coming on. Thank you, Alex, Jeff, Steve. And coming up this Friday, I'm really excited to share with you. I have Kent Gunn out of Florida on the podcast. He'll be joining me an incredible conversation. We talk about his Magic Convention, the Gator Gate and Golden Gate gatherings, or GGG is the way he kind of explained it to me. And what a community, what a convention that is. And originally it was meant to be a birthday gift to himself, is the way he's explained it. You'll hear it in the episode. And it's kind of turned into this living, breathing testament to silly idea taken seriously by a bunch of people who want to be there. And I laughed along the way. It's a very relaxed conversation between he and I hope you enjoy it. That's this Friday. Make sure you're subscribed so that way you'll get the notification when the episode goes up. And while I'm talking about it, about subscribing, I kind of want to talk about if you've been enjoying the podcast overall through the years, or you've been enjoying it more recently. Leave a review. Leave some sort of some acknowledgement that you've been enjoying it. Email me, reach out to me, but most importantly, leave a review, subscribe, share it with a friend or a magician. What this does is it allows more magicians to find the show. It allows more magicians to get exposure to the show. I do think this is something that everybody should have access to, and the only way I can be out there so young magicians, old magicians, new magicians can find the show, hear your voices, hear my voice, hear my guest's voice, and all the inspirations that come behind it, is to leave a review and make it be known. So for those who have been following for some time, or if you're new here, I'd appreciate it. Let me know. And I want to take a quick moment to talk about something that's a little closer to my heart, just as much as the podcast is. I've been writing more and more. I love writing. It's something I kind of, it's in my family. It's in my DNA, I guess. And I've been writing a lot recently. And all of my writings, anything having to do with editorial letters, effects contributed by some amazing magicians, industry reviews, cultural insights, you name it, it all lives on this evolved version of The Dope. It's on Substack. It's $5 a month. If that's something you're interested in, I talk about magic. I talk about barbering, men's grooming stuff. I talk about everything that embodies what I want to write about will be living behind the paywall. Every now and then I might have guest contributions come on and maybe write an essay or put an effect up. But for me to be completely vulnerable and real and authentic, I wanted to put it behind a paywall, so that way it's giving me the opportunity. It's kind of like buying, new shoes or something like that. It allows me to be real, authentic, and raw, and say what I need to say without people just coming in and out of it. If I can build an audience and you're interested in it, it's $5 a month. It's on Substack. I'll put the link in the bio or in the show notes. I'm so used to saying link in bio. And before I wrap things up, I wanted to share a little bit about just behind the scenes of like why I do the podcast, or why I continue to. Sometimes it's not always easy for me to create content. It's a passion project, so I take my time with it. I'm fully aware that some people, they've expressed to me that they want me to do it, on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. But to be honest with you, it's turned into a passion project, and the fire for it is burning very hot. I'm very passionate about it, as well as the dope. And in the moments of weakness, I do remind myself somehow why I do it, why I think it's important for magicians to on this journey with me, or share their insight, or have guests, or I've never been in it for, I've had people with really negative shit coming at me, which is what else new, saying I'm doing it for attention, or I'm trying to, I don't know. Whatever people want to make up, I really don't give a shit. But I wanted to create something different there's so many magic podcasts out there, and 75% of them are bullshit. I think there's probably like 2 or 3 um, that I think really have some substance to them. So I was cleaning out my garage, and I have so much magic stuff that I have in boxes that we've moved into a bigger space recently, and unboxing it, trying to organize it all, and figure out where it's going to go and what I want to put on display, and what needs to be kept in storage. And I came across a letter. When I originally started the podcast, I was sending out personal thank yous and things like that through the mail, which is something I would love to start doing again if I can find a way to get people's addresses, which sounds really creepy just saying it that way. But if I can send out personal letters, I'd like to send out. I'm very old school with some things, so I like to send out personal letters during the holidays and thanking everybody for listening and happy holidays and happy new year and things like that. But so I found a letter. I think it was like maybe one of the first or second. It could have been maybe after that. I sent out letters to listeners, thanking them for subscribing or whatever it was. And essentially in that letter was some stickers to promote the podcast and whatnot. Anyway, so I got this letter from a magician who was a listener, and I read it, and it pretty much, I'm not going to say the name of this magician because it's personal, but it was a very kind letter, pretty much saying, they love the podcast, and thank you for doing it, and that it does matter, and went on to say that they really look forward. It was during the pandemic, so they really look forward to new episodes and hearing my insights on things, and they're so happy to have the podcast be a part of their lives. And I read it, and I remember getting that letter and thinking, wow, that's such a kind letter. And I reached out to that magician and thanked them. And, I never expected anybody to respond back. I mean, at the time we're in the pandemic, number one, and number two, nobody's really writing personal correspondence letters like that very often anymore. So it was really a treat. So now reflecting on it 3-4 years later, it's a different impact, because I did want to start the podcast, and I wanted to do it the right way, and I wanted it to be meaningful, and I wanted it to be mindful, and I wanted it to be worth listening to have some sort of substance that is inspirational. So reading that letter again really kind of added to the fire, that at least there's one person that finds it important, that thinks it's a great way to share things with other magicians and to come together. I've always thought about it as if I'm sitting around a table with other magicians, it would be in a dark room, round table, maybe square table, dimly lit room, and we're just talking. That's always been the environments that I've been in when I'm having really good conversations. So it's one of those things where it's an ongoing endeavor to try to find the right formula to create a episode. It's a solo endeavor. So I think as we grow this time around, I would love to have someone intern with me and help me grow the show and make it better, with music and transitions and things like that. But my voice is being heard, and it's an incredible thing. Never thought about going into what's now being called the modern radio. So when I hit the airwaves, it's very exciting that people respond to it. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to create a podcast for a community that has really sort of been there for me. So thank you so much. And to the person who wrote that letter, I think you might know who you are if you're listening. Thank you. I found it recently, and it really added the fuel to the fire even more. So thank you. And to everyone that's listened through the years and supported, thank you. All right. One last reminder before I go, check out the past episodes if you haven't already. There's a lot there to dig into. Once again, don't forget to join me this Friday with episode with our guest, Kent Gunn. You're not going to want to miss it. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. Drop a review if you can. Share it with someone you think who would love it or get something out of it. And of course, join the dope for more of what's inside my head, but in the written form. We're just getting started. That's it for today. Thanks for spending some time with me. Remember to keep exploring, keep connecting, and most of all, make magic better than when you found it.
Thanks for joining me on the MO Sessions. I hope you found some inspiration and insight to bring a little more magic into your world. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. For updates and further thinkings, the dope, or any of my essays, please see the links in the show notes. I'll see you next time, and remember, leave magic better than when you found it.